Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the Mission Impossible podcast that's out there working hard for you each and every week. How you doing, Charles?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I got to see you last night in the flesh.
Yeah, we went to a movie theater.
Yes, together, in person.
It was my first time in 14 months, I think.
Yeah, the last movie I saw was on March 6th. So this was the first public screening. I've been to some screenings, in full transparency. You know, I want to be honest with you, Charles, and I want to be honest with the listeners.
Those are like critic screenings type thing?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. But we went to City Walk. You know, we got dinner beforehand. We had friends. We saw people in the world.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Amazing. Friends of the podcast. Former guests were there.
Yeah, it was a great night. And
it was awesome.
Boy, we really dove when we said we're going back out into the world again to see a movie.
Yeah.
And we went to City Walk. You knew that we were not messing around.
Yes, and if you didn't see, we made an incredibly stupid video that spoofs the video of Tom Cruise going to see Tenet last year. So if you haven't seen that, we'll post it on our show notes, but it's in our social media as well.
I think it's more of a celebration than a spoof, but
yes,
you're right.
True. It's a celebration of that original video, of Mission Impossible, of going to the movies.
Of Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I mean, it's a celebration. You're right. Absolutely.
And I know we don't have a lot of time at the top of the show because we got a little bit of a longer episode this week. So we'll cut to the chase a little bit and just talk about who we have this week. I still have my, if you see, I have a little note card where I write things down when we're talking. It's my Continental notebook, actually, for those of you who are still celebrating Light the Wick. And
is it actually something from the John Wick people? They gave that to you for?
Yeah, it was a promotional thing. I think for the second one, maybe. That's how old this is. But I've got my Continental.
It's it says that. Oh, you should take a picture of it. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, I will. I'll rip off this page of absolute nonsense. But we're talking to Sean Gerace, and he was J.J. Abrams' assistant on Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah, and he has some really fun stories about that. He was also assistant during the time of Star Trek, and there's some fun stories. So we can talk a little bit about it afterwards. Like you said, it's long.
Yeah.
This episode's a little bit long. I do want to also just remind everybody that Brian De Palma is coming on the show later this month. No fucking biggie.
We will be reminding everyone of that until it happens.
It is amazing, and so you've got to stick around and come back for that, is for sure. I also wanted to quickly say that when we went to the screening, Evan Schiff was there with us. Evan, who is the editor of John Wick 2 and 3, has helped us so much with Light the Wick. Not only did he help, he's such a great guy, helped us get all the Light the Wick interviews going and everything. He also gave us this Ghost Protocol hat.
Yeah.
To go with our the rest of our Mission Impossible collection. Yeah. It goes well with our 4 Dots Ghost Protocol hat, so we can... show. Maybe I'll take a little picture of our little collection. Yeah,
I mean, I need to put my weirdly anatomically correct Tom Cruise doll in there. But yeah,
it's such a random assortment of shit.
Well, I mean, there is no there hasn't been a true sort of merchandise push, I guess, for this franchise.
But we love it. We're so thankful to Evan for giving us this. It's another prized possession in our little armory.
Yeah, when he was like, I don't know if you guys want it, we were like, are you kidding? Of course we do.
Oh, and he had a really kick-ass jacket. He had the MI with the 4 dots jacket that was like a crew jacket that he got. Yeah. That was like a nice, expensive one. Yeah, it was very cool. We tried to pry it off of him, and he wouldn't. He fought us off.
Yeah. He said, you can take it off my corpse. And we thought about it.
We did try to kill him, but he made it through and got out.
Well, before we get going, Charles, I've got to talk to you about our great sponsors for this episode. This episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. Jeremy is just one of our favorite people in the whole world, and his podcast is super great. He has different musicians, songwriters, actors, and filmmakers, and they come on and talk about their love of music and how it's influenced them and their work. This episode is brought to you by John B. as well. We love John B. and we communicate with him fairly regularly, and another great member of our Light the Fuse community. And in addition, we have Real Estate Interest LLC, which is commercial real estate for growing companies. And they want people to know that they can also just offer advice for growing companies. They can consult with Real Estate Interest LLC, even if they are not looking to buy or sell. They help companies save and strategize too. So check them out. And I think that's it, Charles. You ready to get on into this interview?
Yes, I am. Yeah, and enjoy Kevin Blumenfeld's complete ripoff of the plot theme.
Great. We are so thrilled today to be joined by Sean Gerace. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. And you have an interesting story, sort of, right? A connection to this franchise.
I do, I guess, kind of a 6 degrees of separation to a number of them, yeah.
So go ahead, tell us.
Well, my connection to the first one was I was working for J.J. Abrams at the time. I worked for J.J. for about 10 years, starting from Felicity. So started on Mission Impossible 3 as far as the franchise is concerned. Worked a bit with Brad Bird on Tomorrowland. Worked a bit with Colleen Atwood on Alice in Wonderland, as well as with Tommy Harper, who you've had on the show. Yeah, a number of connections to them.
Well, can we talk about your experience on 3? Because were you JJ's assistant on that movie?
I was his second assistant on that film.
Okay, so what did that mean for you day to day?
What that meant was I was working with JJ already on Alias. So I was there basically from the beginning. I was there when Tom Cruise, Paul Wagner, and Steven Spielberg came in to see JJ about writing War of the Worlds, up until the moment when JJ started working with Alex and Bob on writing the script, and all the way through until post-production.
Wow. So he couldn't do War of the Worlds because he had too much TV stuff going on, right?
Correct. He had just basically been doing Lost and was getting that up on its feet. So he was unable to do War of the Worlds. But as the story goes, as Tom Cruise was leaving JJ's office, JJ's assistant at the time gave Tom Cruise the box sets of Alias. And Tom Cruise watched those and picked JJ to direct Mission Impossible.
Wow. So you're his second assistant. So what are both of you? I'm assuming there was only one other assistant, but I guess there could have been.
Yeah, there was
more.
Just two of us.
Okay. So what did you guys sort of trade off on duties? Was one more his personal life and one was more production related?
I was a little more production related because I had a background as a set PA that came in very handy when we were shooting MI3, because I was aware of the culture of using walkie-talkies and the AD structure and all those things. That, yeah, really I was his guy on set.
Okay.
The kind of the conduit between the AD team with Tommy Gormley and JJ's camp, I guess. Okay.
And this shoot seemed to be relatively smooth, all things considered, especially in the sort of canon of Mission Impossible. What do you remember from the actual production?
I mean, I remember it going very smoothly. I mean, we started out in Italy. I mean, I'm remembering even further back to when Alex and Bob started writing, when they were meeting with Mr. Cruise and developing the script. My first experience with what became the script was JJ was doing some reshoots on an episode of Alias. We were shooting on the Disney lot. We broke for lunch. We go to the commissary. JJ's sitting and he's working on his computer and I'm sitting with him. And he says, "You want to see the script for MI3? I said, "Yeah." He slid the laptop over to me and it was that whole opening scene. Pretty much exactly as filmed. As you know, once they got Philip Seymour Hoffman on board, the villain kind of changed in that opening scene. But it was really something to read those pages and then end up shooting them months later. Then when we began production, we went off to Italy. We spent a week in Rome and a week in Caserta, which was an incredible experience. I had never been to Italy. I'm half Italian, so I remember landing there and thinking, oh yeah, my great-grandparents are from here. We get on the buses, we go to the hotel. I remember walking into the lobby of the hotel and it is full of the crew. The entire production is waiting there. And I thought, this is going to take all day. And the guy behind the counter goes, "We're going to call you by name." And he reaches down, he picks up a card, he goes, "Gerace." I went, "Right here." And I went walking past producers and cast and everyone else. I guess they were looking for their people first, and they picked me, and I got my key and went up to my room and went down hours later, and people were still checking in. So that was the beginning of my time in Italy. The production itself was really great there. JJ's, I know Harper talked about it on the first day, that JJ just seemed so incredibly prepared and at ease. I think he may have said that he didn't sleep well the night before, but you wouldn't have known it. That first day was just such an incredible experience that was my first day on a big movie. I had worked on television up until that time. So seeing the whole sequence with the boat and the cast coming in, it was incredible. And then we went to Caserta, a small town a couple hours outside of Rome, where we shot the Vatican sequence, or a majority of the Vatican sequence. And that was incredible as well. Basically, it was just this remarkable way to start off the production, of being on this bigger than life location, and being there, having worked on Alias for so many times, for so many months prior to that, where if the characters were in Rome, we were in Burbank. This is the first time that, no, we're in Rome, and we're in Rome. We were in Italy. So that was a great experience.
Was the opening scene, is it true that originally it was Eddie Marsan's character?
It's absolutely what it was, yeah.
And did they actually shoot that version with Eddie Marsan?
They
or did
never
they
did.
change last minute right before they shot it?
No, they changed it beforehand. Eddie Marsan was great. I had a film of his on DVD, and I was so nerdy that I wanted to ask him to sign this film that he was in. But as originally scripted, he was the guy who was interrogating Ethan. But once they got Philip Seymour Hoffman, they changed that role to Mr. Hoffman's character. And Mr. Marsan was very gracious enough to say, okay, no problem. And was still there, but didn't get the lines that initially intended, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if he has any lines in the final movie.
I think he has one sequence where he's yelling in German to somebody during the shootout, and then when he shoots the device into Ethan's head, I think he just says hello, and then just does it.
Right.
Yeah, he's got a few words.
Yeah,
and that's what he ended up with. So the reason they did it was because Philip Seymour Hoffman got cast, and they decided they wanted to give him a bigger part, or was it a realization? So, and it was before the shoot had begun. It was some time earlier.
No, it was before the shoot had begun.
Okay.
Once they got Philip Seymour Hoffman, my instinct is that the idea was, well, we have this guy who just won the Academy Award. Maybe we should use him as much as we can, and change that
Right.
change that opening sequence to include him.
When you read that script on JJ's computer, did you say, this feels a lot like an episode of Alias, JJ? Do we really need to star in media res and go back to the beginning?
I watched it again recently for the first time because I hadn't seen it in many years. And you're absolutely right that it not in a critical way, it feels like a much larger episode of Alias. And not in a bad way. But it seemed it's definitely had that DNA in its blueprint for sure.
Right. It seemed like he was getting to do all the things he couldn't do on the budget of Alias. Absolutely,
yeah. Yeah, no question. Like I said, not only with the locations, but special effects and cast and everything else. It was Alias on steroids, for sure.
Can you confirm, I think I know the answer to this because you already emailed us a photo, I think. Can you confirm that when they were shooting it in the exteriors of the Vatican, there was a fake movie shoot in order to distract the crowds? And can you tell the story?
That was the Vatican has a no filming policy, period. To my knowledge, nothing has ever filmed there. And they wanted the sequence of going to the Vatican. They couldn't have access to it. So yes, we set up this, I shouldn't say, not we, like me, like I was in charge of it, I wasn't, but they set up this entire camera crew, grips and electricians, nuns, and all these characters to be shooting, I guess what appeared to be like a music video. And when they were rolling on that was meant to be kind of, hey, look over here while we're filming this thing. And while they were doing that, the real camera guys were coming up with the DHL van, pulling up right outside the Vatican, that then Jonathan Rhys-Meyers jumps out of the van and goes running onto the Vatican Square. And then once they got it, like, okay, that's a wrap, let's go, and quickly ushered us out of there. I remember talking to one of the camera guys on the show, and they said their biggest regret was, as far as that splinter unit thing was concerned, that they didn't actually roll any film on it. It was just empty cameras, and because it really would have been something funny to see of this footage that they were footage that they were getting to distract the Vatican guards who weren't messing around.
Right. Yeah, it was supposedly, it was like nuns and girls in bikinis or something.
Yeah, it was. I mean, this literally in the shadow of St. Peter's Square. It was a bit. I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. all these tourists coming around, people making this pilgrimage to the Roman Catholic to that place, and these people looking, and there we have nuns and girls in bikinis. They must have thought, what are they doing?
Do you have any good Tom Cruise stories? Because people always love to hear good stories.
In the context of this podcast, it's going to make me sound like an idiot, but oh well. I think we were in post-production, but we were back at the office, and I was answering the phones. And at this point, Lost was starting. JJ still had Alias. Phones were ringing a lot. Phone rings. I pick up the phone, JJ Abrams' office. This voice goes, "Hey, is this Sean?" I said, "Yes." "Hey, Sean, how you doing?" "I'm doing well, and you?" "Good. Hey, it's Tom. Is JJ there?" And I said, "Of course, sir." "I'm sorry, Tom who?" And there's this pause, and he goes, "It's Tom Cruise, Sean." And I just was like, oh, shit. I said, "Oh, one moment, Mr. Cruise," and put him on hold, and just couldn't believe how stupid that was, that I had done that. But that was one of the big stories. I never made that mistake again. The other story that I remember was when we were shooting the helicopter sequence, specifically the interior of the helicopter. We were out at this air base. I can't remember the name of it offhand, I'm sorry. But they had the helicopter mock-up on a gimbal. And they're bringing the cast and crew in. And they had step ladders set up to get the cast and the camera guys up into the gimbal. And Mr. Cruise comes on to set, and he sees that, and he goes, "No, this isn't going to work." And he goes, "Where's Tommy Gibson?" And Tommy Gibson was our key grip. He goes, "Over here, boss." And Tommy Gibson comes running up, and Mr. Cruise said, "Tommy, this isn't going to work. This isn't safe. We need stairs." He said, "Absolutely, boss. Give me 20 minutes." So I laughed about this years later, because long before Tropic Thunder, I got to hear Tom Cruise essentially say, "Where's the key grip?" And in a span of about 25 minutes, the grips built stairs with railings that would roll up to the helicopter set. I mean, you saw the entire grip department, saws, measuring tapes, just working at breakneck speed. And when we came back to shoot and the stairs were there, first thing Mr. Cruise said, "Folks, I want to acknowledge the grip department and thank them for this." And he led the crew in a round of applause, thanking the grip department for making it a safer set for them.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like everyone has to kind of step up their game when they're around him.
Yeah, there's no question that he takes the producer title very seriously. Of course, there's a number of actors or people who have a producer title, but he knows everyone's name. He knows what everyone's job is. If he asked Tommy Gormley, when are we going to be ready to shoot? And Gormley said, 45 minutes. At 43 minutes, he's walking. He's leaving his trailer and coming to set. You better be ready. There's no inviting him. If you tell him 45 minutes, be ready to film in 45 minutes.
Wow.
So everyone had to step up their game. There's no question. Everyone had to do that.
Well, you've listened to the podcast. You know we're obsessed with the production of the bridge sequence.
Yeah.
I've talked to a number of people about that. What was that like on your side of things? Was that super exciting?
That was super exciting. We were, I think it was Calabasas is where we were. And I know you were speaking with Luke on one of the podcasts, and as he described it, this whole bridge set was built in the middle of this field. Couldn't believe it. It's just full size, the whole thing. We're shooting it, and the location was a little tricky because I remember every once in a while you'd hear it over the walkie, someone calling for the snake wrangler, because there was a genuine risk of rattlesnakes, and every once in a while you'd hear on channel 1, snake wrangler, go to 2, and you'd see this guy go running with his bucket and these long, this long claw handle thing that he could scoop up the snake and put it in the bucket. I remember when we shot, once this explosion started, seeing one of the explosions and watching this piece of debris fly up and get caught by the wind and land in some of the brush. And I'd heard the phrase spread like a brush fire, had never seen one. And it was terrifying. The wind just took it and it started to spread. But thankfully they had water trucks everywhere who immediately put the fire out. The only part of the bridge that was not on that level ground was closer to base camp. We had an elevated set that probably went up about 4 stories. It was a very small section of the bridge, because there's that part in the movie where he's standing there and the helicopter comes up behind him, and that they couldn't shoot at the actual bridge. So they just had this little piece that the helicopter could come rise up behind him and then cut to the rest of the sequence that was filmed on the bridge itself.
Wow. We need to get that snake wrangler on, Charles. We need to find his number.
Yeah, we do.
Was there anything you remember shooting that didn't make it into the movie?
Yeah, actually, one thing I was thinking about, and you'd have to ask Dan Mindell this. We were shooting in Rome, and it was the part of the sequence where Ethan is going over the wall into the Vatican. We were shooting the Rome side of it, because part of it was in Rome, and then the rest we shot in Caserta. The section in Rome, we were filming that sequence, and Dan Mindell was filming it with a hand-cranked camera. And I asked him, I said, what are you doing with that? Actually, I had asked JJ, and JJ said, I'm thinking of doing something with the opening credits, of kind of seeing these quick flashes of the movie that would be in strange speeds, because like an old movie camera, Dan Mindell's cranking a little faster, a little slower. We ended up not using it for some reason. I don't know why. But that was the only thing that I remember filming. No, sorry, one other piece that was, I think it's a deleted scene that's somewhere, where Ethan takes out a guard during the sequence where he's rescuing Lindsay. And it was Rob Alonzo, who was one of our stunt guys. And just this quick fight sequence, he takes the guy out. And we filmed it, and for some reason, it just didn't end up in the movie.
So, okay, title sequence.
Yeah.
This is like, MI3 is, the title sequence is so quick,
abrupt.
and we always are so sad that they didn't do the full title sequence like the other Mission movies. And that sounds awesome. I wish they did that. How many of those pieces did they shoot like that?
I think that was it.
So they did the one, and then they just kind of abandoned ship.
Yeah, I don't know why. It certainly seemed like such an interesting idea. And I remember when he told me, I thought, oh, that should be fun. And then seeing it in the subsequent films where they're including bits of the rest of the movie in that sequence, I thought, well, I guess that was the original plan for the title sequence of MI3, but they just didn't do that.
Oh man, it also would have linked Dan's work beautifully between what he was doing with Tony Scott at the time.
Yes.
Too, the kind of overcranked, undercranked, hallucinogenic kind of thing. Oh man.
Dang. Oh man, that's cool. That would have been cool.
Oh yeah, I remember talking to him about Domino and the lengths that they went to. Dan Mindell is one of the most staunch supporters of shooting on film I've ever met, and rightly so. He's such an advocate for it. But he talked about shooting Domino, of bleaching the film in a different way and things to kind of saturate those colors. And I'm sure there was some kind of great plan for using that hand crank camera, but for reasons I don't know, they abandoned it very quickly.
Listen, Sean, it sounds like you spent a lot of time with JJ. Or, yeah, I would say you're a close personal friend. What do you think his chances of ever coming on the show are? Give me a ballpark.
I mean, honestly, I haven't spoken to him in quite some time. But given that, you know, Mr. McQuarrie has been on a number of times, Brad Bird has been on, you know, I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility. It might just be a timing thing. And certainly,
Yeah,
obviously, in the midst of a
busy.
pandemic, it's probably a little tough. But
Right. Yes, he's a busy guy. I won't say whether or not we emailed him maybe a couple of years ago and he didn't email us back. But you know what? I still think it's probably in his email box. He's just getting to other people first.
yeah,
And then he'll follow up.
I think if you started a campaign with Mr. Mindell and Mr. Giacchino to kind of encourage him to do it, he'd probably come up for it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sean. You are of no help on that front.
Sorry.
We will look past this. So was there anything else from the shooting that was super memorable or?
I think that one of the most memorable things was meeting Frank Darabont, of all things. He came down to the set one day, and I'm a huge Stephen King fan, huge fan of Frank Darabont's adaptations of King. And getting a chance to meet him and talk with him on set. I know this, you know, in the context of, oh, we're on a Mission Impossible and there's Tom Cruise and all of this. But Frank Darabont has been one of my idols. And to actually get a chance to talk with him for a minute was really something. Another thing that I remember was the whole sequence in the pharmacy set that was supposed to take place in China. We were shooting on the Paramount lot, and Scott Chambliss had just finished that set. And so we went to take a tour of the set. It was the first time we were looking at it after the art department. I mean, the whole art department on that show did such an incredible job with the catacombs and any of these sequences that you would have thought were on location but weren't. But we were walking the set and we were scheduled to go to China. But JJ, if I'm remembering this correctly, he had the realization that they could shoot much more of the sequence there on set than in China. And they quickly had a meeting. They brought in Stratton Leopold, who's one of the producers, and Paula Wagner and Tom Cruise, and said, I think we can accomplish much more right here on set than we need to when we're in China. So we did. It extended our sequence on the stage a bit longer, but shortened our filming time in China a little bit.
Going back to Frank Darabont, did he say anything about, I wrote a version of this movie before?
You know, it's funny. At the time, I didn't even realize that was the case. So he did not mention it. He did not mention it at all, but he was such an incredibly kind person and you know, was nice enough to field my endless questions about filming The Shawshank Redemption and adapting King. So no, it was pretty great.
Was he just there for a visit or was he working on the script?
No, he was just there for a visit. Mr. Cruise had invited him down and he came, and which, you know, considering that he had worked on a previous version of the script that ended up not being made, it was very nice of him to come down and visit us. So
yeah, his version of MI3, I think, was like weeks away from being shot. The one that Joe Carnahan was going to direct.
That's my understanding of it. Yeah, that's my understanding of it. My memory of, as far as when it was supposed to start filming, was, as I mentioned, Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise, Paul Wagner came down to meet with JJ about writing War of the Worlds. JJ couldn't do it. Tom Cruise gets the copy of Alias and then watches the show and approaches JJ about directing MI3. There was a script in place. JJ read the script and told Mr. Cruise, look, it's great, it's just not what I would do. And Mr. Cruise asked JJ, what would you want to do? And JJ pitched him what was essentially the bare bones of MI3. And Mr. Cruise said, well, let's do that. Tom Cruise's original batting order was supposed to be Mission Impossible 3 before War of the Worlds. But when the decision was made that JJ was going to direct Mission Impossible 3, but they were going to change the script, they flipped the order. In fact, if you watch the behind the scenes footage of the making of War of the Worlds, They talk about this accelerated schedule because they moved up the entire production of War of the Worlds to accommodate JJ and Alex and Bob having the time to write the script for Mission before they started filming.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think who was it? Was JJ on the set? He was on the set of War of the Worlds as well, right? I think. Were you ever there?
Yeah. JJ called the office one day and said, "Hey, can someone bring a script down?" So I got in my car and I drove down to Universal with the script. I get onto the lot and Tom Cruise's assistants are waiting outside for me. They're, "Hey, come on in." So I walk in and I'm looking for JJ and I hear his voice and I'm following it and he is sitting next to Steven Spielberg. And I'm thinking, I don't want to interrupt him and I don't want to, I don't want to disturb Mr. Spielberg. So I try to get JJ's eye and he sees me. He's, "Oh, hey." He waves me over and I give him the script. And I hear JJ say, "Oh, Steven, this is my assistant, Sean." And out of the corner of my eye, I see Steven Spielberg turning toward me. And I had this out-of-body moment where Steven Spielberg holds out his hand and says, "Very nice to meet you, Sean." And I shook his hand and said something that was some clustered mumble of having this chance to meet him. But they were filming the diner sequence. And what was so startling to me about that, again, not having worked on a feature film prior to this, was that entire set, including the street outside, was on a stage. It was all indoors. It wasn't a location. It wasn't outside.
Wow.
That was a pretty...
Is this the shot where it's Cruise and his family coming into the diner, and in the background, it's all in, the first part of it is all in one, where in the background you see people on the street and the cars coming through, and then a guy takes a gun and takes a shot into someone, and it's all staged in the background as the lights are flickering in the diner. It's an amazing shot.
Yeah, it was all on a stage. And I remember even walking on it, and they had basically blacktopped the floor of the stage with yellow lines and everything. If you didn't know any better, you would have thought you were on a real location. But it was all on a stage and it's a controlled environment. So that was a moment where I had a chance to go down to War of the Worlds and meet Steven Spielberg, who was another one of my idols. So that was a really good day in the pre-production of MI3.
Yeah, wow.
Wow. The only filmmaker I ever talked to is Charles, so it's not quite. That's not
too shabby. That's not too shabby. I mean, I worked with your uncle Dave Fredericks.
Charles's uncle?
Charles's uncle. Yeah, sorry, I meant Charles's uncle, Dave Fredericks, because when I was working on Felicity, when I was a set PA, he found out that I was a big horror fan, and he said, "Oh, I worked on Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead." I said, "Oh, really?" And he was telling me that whole opening credit sequence of the film with this beautiful shot of the rising moon was his idea, and that they filmed it twice over a couple months of this beautiful time lapse of the moon coming up. And what was nice is watching the Blu-ray for Night of the Living Dead, Tom Savini gives him a shout out. So this is Dave Fredericks, one of my camera operators who did the shot.
Oh, wow. I did not know that story. That's amazing. Yeah, I haven't spoken to David in many years, but I got to visit some sets with him when I was in college, which was a really cool thing. And one of them was Felicity. And yeah, he did a lot of really cool work over the years. But
I wonder if I was on set when you were there.
So cool.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I don't know what season that was that you were there, but I was wondering if I was there.
It was probably spring of 99 or spring of 2000. I'm not sure which one. One of those two.
No.
So no, I would have been on Alias.
That one was actually high school. I was visiting colleges, and so I came out to Los Angeles to visit colleges, and I came and visited the set where he was working.
Wow, that's great.
So obviously your sort of mission saga doesn't end there, because you worked with another mission filmmaker, a maniac, and maybe my favorite person on the planet Earth, Brad Bird. Can you talk about what that was? What was like?
I worked with Mr. Bird for a short period of time on Tomorrowland when they were prepping in Los Angeles. They shot the film in Canada, but while they were prepping there, had a chance to meet Mr. Bird. Actually had to drive him around a couple times. Picked him up, he and his assistant, up from the airport, and I remember asking him about working with Michael Kamen on Iron Giant. He was talking about that. Yeah, that's a guy who was absolutely full of energy and ideas. I think one of my favorite moments working on that was we had to go down to this top secret auto factory or auto design plant. You wouldn't even know it was there. It was just a nondescript building. But when we went in, everyone had to have stickers that would go over the cameras of their phones. And I'm just driving folks there, and I'm thinking I'm going to wait in the lobby. And I believe it was Mr. Jeffrey Chernoff, who was one of the producers of that, says, "Hey, you want to come in?" I said, "Yeah." So went into this top secret design center because I guess they were designing some of the vehicles for the movie, and seeing this enormous machine carving a life-size car out of a giant block of clay that they were designing for some future model that I have no idea if they ever did. But seeing that whole process of designing these cars and what ended up being in the film, I mean, working with Mr. Bird was really something. He was so energetic and had so many amazing ideas. And that was also working with Damon Lindelof, who I'd worked with a little bit, and just seeing that whole story being shepherded by him and working on that with Mr. Bird, it was a great experience.
When you were in Los Angeles, did you go to the Disneyland shoot?
I did not go to the Disneyland shoot because I believe I think that came later on.
Okay.
I had 2 jobs on that show. I was an office PA for the pre-production part, and then once they went off to Canada, Jim Tyson, who was one of the costume supervisors, who you should absolutely talk to because I know he worked on Ghost Protocol, asked me if I wanted to help the costume department out while they were prepping to go. I said sure. So that was Jeffrey Kurland's show. So I had a chance to work with the costume department, just being basically an assistant for them, picking stuff up, but seeing that whole design process and hearing all those stories and watching how, I mean, Mr. Kurland believes in crafting everything down to the smallest stitch, everything. And it was really something to see all his designs and then watching them make the costumes and then ship them off to Canada for the shoot.
Well, Mr. Kurland is on our list because obviously he did Mission Impossible Fallout. So we're and then another person you said you worked with was Colleen Atwood on Alice in Wonderland.
Yes.
And she is another person very high on our list because she did the costumes for MI3, and we're very big fans of hers. What was it like working with Colleen Atwood?
I had more interaction with her on Alice in Wonderland. I met her, of course, on MI3, but Mr. Harper asked me if I wanted to work on Alice in Wonderland, and I said yes, and I was just working as a confidentiality PA, and what that means was trying to make sure that no photos got leaked from the set or anything like that, trying to keep the whole production under wraps. And for whatever reason, I spoke with Miss Atwood a number of times on that, and I tend to be very formal. I'm just probably being from the Midwest. And I'm not one of those people that say, "Oh, good morning, Colleen." She's won 4 Academy Awards. She is Ms. Atwood. And and this is such a great thing about her. I would say, "Good morning, Miss Atwood," and she would just say, "Good morning." She wouldn't correct me, which it was, I'm not giving her grief about that. Like I said, 4 Academy Awards, she is Miss Atwood. She was always impeccably dressed, just looked perfect and was so kind. It's "Good morning. How are you, Sean?" I said, "I'm doing very well, Miss Atwood. And you?" "Very well." Worked with her as well as Jeffrey Kaplan on Star Trek as well, who you also talked to on the podcast, I know.
Michael Kaplan.
Michael Kaplan, I'm sorry. Yeah, Michael Kaplan. I'm thinking,
No worries.
confusing Jeffrey Kurland and Michael Kaplan.
Well, you brought up Star Trek, and you were script security and script coordinator / researcher.
Yes.
For Star Trek Into Darkness. How much blame do you want to take for that movie? And was it your duty to not let Khan out of the bag?
Well, I worked on both Star Trek films. Yeah, the thing about Khan on the second one was certainly an ordeal. JJ, I'm sure you guys are well aware, JJ wrote a draft of Superman many years ago that got leaked. And it was a huge thing. When we started on Mission Impossible, we started doing a script security that Cruz Wagner had put into place, where Not everyone has a script. We have a few copies of the script that are in a safe in the production office, and people would come to the office to read it. The security on the first Star Trek film and then the second Star Trek film, it only increased exponentially. On the second one, they experimented with using this anti-copy paper, which is essentially Mylar. And I remember looking through the conference room window that Joey Box, one of the stunt guys, was trying to read the script. And we were signing scripts out to people. Again, they would come into the office to read it. They would go into a room with no windows and read it. And it was taking people 3 and 4 hours to read it. Couldn't figure out why until I peeked through the window one time and saw Joey Box standing holding the script against the wall, because you couldn't read it on a table because of the overhead lights. It was just the glare. So eventually we just switched back to the red paper. As far as keeping Khan a secret, that was a big deal. There was a number of things that we did, which was basically called sanitizing the script. And one of the things I had to do was remove any reference to Khan, either in the slug lines or the character headings, and change it to something else. And particularly when we were on location, all the sides had to be modified that way. Generally on a show, when I started out in early TV, anyone who wanted a set of sides could get a set of sides, no problem. They just end up on tables and chairs. No one really cared. On a movie like that, we had to sign the sides out in the morning, and we had to collect them from everyone at night, shred them. Everything had to be changed. So when we were shooting the sequence in Into Darkness where Spock is chasing Khan through the streets of San Francisco, however many extras that we had, it was crucial that the sides did not get out. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think a photo of it did get out, but any reference to Khan was changed in it. So it didn't say Khan. Yeah, there was a lot of time and energy that went into keeping that a secret.
Okay, so what name did you choose when you had to put a fake name for Khan? Was it like Mr. Kabludi or something?
Yeah, I think it was just his name, John Harrison. I think that's what it was. It ended up just being the name that he was known as.
Charles, that famous Star Trek character John Harrison that we all
right. That's well known in canon. Yeah, that was an experience for sure, because the first movie they were very concerned about security, but I think we were shooting the first day. We were out on location, and some paparazzi with a telescopic lens took photos of we were filming in a cemetery. I can't remember where we were. It was this huge cemetery. It was the sequence of, this is in the first film, of Spock addressing the Vulcan science panel or whatever it was. We're filming the movie, and online there are photos of us filming that paparazzi were taking from a van half a mile away, that they were filming us through the windows of the church. So after that, we had to start putting up big green screens and big tarps around everything to block everything from people's vision.
So when you're the script security, and those like, when that happens, do they send you out there with a baseball bat? Do you go after the paparazzi?
Oh, I wish I would. I would have been Team Negan for sure. No, on the first Star Trek film, they had a guy named Barry Curtis who ran the. I'm trying to think what a term for it would be. I guess it is. It's script or set confidentiality. Barry now runs that for Marvel, so you can tell how good he was at that job. He's essentially the guy who makes sure nothing gets leaked on any of the Marvel films. They had an entire department that would do that. I had nothing to do with that on Star Trek. I worked with Barry then on Alice in Wonderland. That was my first experience of kind of being in that world of making sure that people aren't taking photos and no one's taking pictures of Mr. Depp coming to and from set and everything. So that was certainly something as well.
Well, the secrets that were kept for the first Star Trek were definitely worth it. I remember seeing like a photo of in like I think it was like Entertainment Weekly or something of Chris Pine and hearing about this new cast, and I didn't even know who Chris Pine was, and I was like, what are they doing? Why are they making this movie? And then it came out and blew me away. That movie rules.
That was a lot of fun because the conversations about that started at the tail end of Mission. I remember JJ asking me, "Did you ever watch Star Trek?" I said, "Yeah, sure." He said, "I think that might be what I do next." I thought, "Oh, okay." And when they were starting that, he asked me, he said, "Would you want to be the researcher on that?" Which I'd never done before. I said, "Sure." So I was basically on IM with Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orsi, and whenever they had questions, they would send it to me. Paramount sent me this vast library of books, of encyclopedias and all the stuff that I could research. And I remember one of the first things I had to do, Damon Lindelof asked me, "Can you do a report on the Romulans?" Which is the last thing I ever thought I would ever have to do in my entire life. But I did. That first Star Trek film was really something. As far as Pine is concerned,
Yeah.
he was very late in the casting process because they were trying to find their right Kirk. And one of the things that happened with me was, if I'm remembering this correctly, they were kind of as a joke, they were filming different crew members doing their best Shatner kind of impression, just kind of as a joke to include on these casting tapes. And on that film, I was in charge of the scripts, keeping them in a safe. And the casting folks, April Webster and Alyssa Weisberg, asked for a script. I brought a script over to their office. I had them sign it out. And before I leave, they said, "Hey, can you read something for a second?" I said, "Yeah." And I'm thinking it's going to be the weird Kirk impression thing. And suddenly I'm standing there and they're filming me. And it's this scene that's not in the film. It was just a sequence written for the casting process of this crew member yelling instructions to people. I thought, okay, didn't think anything of it. I get an email later that day from JJ saying, "Dude, you rocked the audition." I said, "What audition?" And I ended up being one of the crew members in the Kelvin sequence in the beginning.
Wow.
Which was really, I had never had to do that before. And that was an experience because that was early on in the shoot. And those costumes were unforgiving. I remember dropping off a script to the costume department, and one of the costume guys asked me, "Did you just get cast in the Kelvin sequence?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, you're wearing the fun costumes." I said, "What do you mean?" Then he showed me the sketches of them, and I was already in pretty good shape at the time. But I thought, okay, I'm on a steamed chicken and vegetables diet for the duration of this because that was just this form-fitting Lycra thing that was not that was a far cry from the Enterprise costumes that came later.
That's great. And did you see Hemsworth at all on the set? And did you fall in love with him? As we all have. Okay.
Obviously at the time, I believe he was a relatively unknown person. He was very nice, just chatted with the crew, but had no idea that he would go on to be who he is now. I think they had originally gone to, as I think you guys know this, they had gone to Mark Wahlberg to be Kirk's father. And that didn't work out.
I did not know that.
So they went with Chris Hemsworth. And that turned out to be kind of ahead of its time, I guess, as far as big casting is concerned. But he was great. He was great. Wow. Everyone on that show was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, do you feel comfortable ranking the Mission Impossible movies? Can you give us your ranking?
It's a great question. I can't have an opinion on 3 because I know everything about it. And I think part of what makes a movie experience so great is when you don't know what's coming. And I knew everything in that movie. I know that from listening to podcasts that number 2 tends to get kicked around the block a little bit. I think, look, every one of those movies has great qualities to it. And at the end of the day, a not so great John Woo movie is still an amazing John Woo movie that's better than
Agreed.
A lot of things. I think the thing that I find so interesting is that the franchise originally began as a director's franchise. different director every time, bringing their own style to it. And I think those first 3 films in particular were very standalone for that reason. I love Mr. McQuarrie's films. I can't wait to see what he's doing with the rest of them. But clearly they have become far more serialized for that reason, which is great. There's part of me that says, God, I wish he had just stayed with Jack Reacher, because I really wanted to see what he would have done with another Jack Reacher film. I like them all. And I think Michael Giacchino said it best, where, no one is trying to make a bad movie. And each one of those films has something special and unique to it.
Definitely.
So that's the best answer I can give you. I'm sorry.
Sean, you're a man cut from the same cloth as us, clearly. We love them all. Even 2, for all of its faults. But thank you. I know we went long, but thank you so much for coming on and accepting this mission.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And we're back, Charles. How you feeling about that interview?
I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of great stuff in there. I mean, it's some really funny stories and interesting. The whole like confidentiality, for keeping everything secret is like a fun. It's like a bit of espionage amongst filmmaking.
Yes, and I know the guy that he is talking about that works for Marvel, and he does not fuck around. So that tells you how airtight the bad robot ship is.
Has this man threatened you, Drew?
No, not at all. But I've heard about him sort of springing to action when there are other leaks.
Right.
I think there was like a weird thing where there were parts of Endgame that were like uploaded online the weekend it came out, like really spoilery stuff. So
yeah, it was a really good chat. I liked talking with Sean.
Yeah, me too. And it again offers up insight to a different kind of part of movie making that people don't really get to see or hear about that much. So I was really interested in that as well.
Well, it's cool. Like if you follow Christopher McQuarrie on Instagram, he's been highlighting just how many people it takes to make a movie like this. I mean, any movie, but especially these gigantic movies.
Yeah.
It aligns with our whole podcast philosophy of showing you all these nooks and crannies of what it takes to make a movie.
Yeah.
Actually, the biggest thing, I can't believe I didn't bring this up already, is the title sequence.
Yes.
They were filming stuff undercranked and overcranked footage for what would have been an MI3 title sequence that we were robbed of. We never got it. We always talk about how we're sad there wasn't a title sequence for MI3, really.
Yes, and it sounds like it was abandoned during production, which is also, if you'll recall from our many Ghost Protocol interviews, what happened on Ghost Protocol.
Right.
Because remember, they were shooting bits and pieces in IMAX, and it ended up being abandoned as well.
Yeah.
So 2 movies in a row, couldn't get it going. But at least we got a title sequence in Ghost Protocol. MI3 is just so barren without it.
Yeah.
So
I know. It's an alternate universe where I wish I could see that.
Yeah.
I just want to see some of the footage that Dan Mandel was shooting. It just sounds cool.
Same.
I also loved hearing about the elevated piece of bridge that they had to do for that one helicopter shot. That was cool to hear about.
And if you love hearing stories about guys quickly making stairs, we also got that covered.
we did get yes, we did get the amazing crew, and it was cool to hear crews looking out for the crew and cast to make sure everybody's safe, which you keep hearing these stories more and more lately, which is cool to hear.
It was awesome.
I also loved to hear the thing about the shot in War of the Worlds that was on a stage, and that scene in the diner. Oh my God. I'll try to get a clip of that and put it in our show notes, because that scene is amazing.
Well, what was so funny was you and I were just talking about that scene like a week before or something.
Yeah, I was just watching it because I watched that in Minority Report just a few weeks before this chat with Sean, and I think I sent you a video of that scene.
Yep, correct.
Because it's staged so well with the way that Spielberg, in the diner, the light's flickering. And so in the foreground is Cruise and his kids, and they come into the diner, but the light's flickering, and then the light goes to darkness right when Spielberg wants you to focus your attention to what's happening outside, and then the timing of it and everything. It's just the coordination. It's just amazing, and of course it makes sense that it's a set. I mean, it's a surprise, though, because it looks really like it's outside. But when you think about the way the shot moves through the diner and everything, that it's like a half diner probably set that they made.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've all seen the plane crash set still at Universal sitting up there right now.
Is it still there as part of the studio tour?
Mm-hmm. One year at Halloween Horror Nights, we actually walked through it, which was pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah.
They let you do that? Isn't there like airplane debris everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, there's none in the road because that's where the trams go, obviously. So they just had us walk through there. But it was very cool to be that close to it.
Wow.
I mean, it's a real plane. So yeah, you have some shout outs, Charles, to give at the end of the show too, right?
Yes, I do. I want to give a special thank you to Sonia Miranda and to Dustin Catalan. Thank you to Sonia and Dustin to make this episode possible. And also want to credit our editor and mixer, Luke Burson, who does such a great job for us, and our production assistant, Abby Smith, and our intern, Adam Bumis. Everybody that helps us make this show possible. And of course, Kevin Blumenfeld, who gives us our legally dissimilar and legally shaky Mission Impossible music. So give a big thank you to all of them, and a thank you to you, Drew.
And thank you, Charles. And I want to tell everybody, if you want even more Mission Impossible content, we've got a lot of great episodes that aren't on the main feed that are only available in our Patreon. So go to patreon.com/LightTheFuse. And you can join for a number of different price points. Every little bit helps. We've got shirts on tpublic.com, so check those out, including a Scuba Luther shirt that Charles is wearing right now.
Yes, it's true.
And if you could also just like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast, please tell people about it. Email us or send us messages on social media. We're at Light the Fuse Pod. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what merch you want to get, and we will try to facilitate that stuff as best we can. But literally everything helps, and we just can't thank you enough.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. Before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.